Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics, still on Matters Manifestos, and Roots Party candidate Professor George Wajackoyah also unveiled his manifesto outlining his key agenda of legalizing marijuana. Professor Wajackoyah says he will solidify his marijuana agenda by exporting the product to help offset the huge public debt. Husband, the public debt is something that really resonates with Kenyans, and you know, when they hear that this will, because it's quite an unconventional campaign, the sources of income that the country will get, perhaps one may be swayed to think that, well, if this is how we'll get the money, and it's quick money that we need, one, as a country, two, to solve loans, three, how practical is this?
Well, I think the biggest contribution that Professor Wajackoyah is making is that he's drawing Kenyans back to the, Kenya Kwanza manifesto and the Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Lands manifesto. For the simple reason that he's providing, a very practical, way of dealing with the issues that this country is facing. So you look at the debt issue, for instance, and how he's articulating, how we are going to pay this debt. So you have the medical marijuana, for instance. You talk about, he's turning Kenyans into hunters and gatherers. So we'll have to go outside there and look for hyenas and slaughter them and export. So, to a large extent, those things are just outlandish. They don't look very solid and practical, but at least he offers a pathway. This is the problem. This is what you're going to do. This is the solution. And what that does to me, and what I've seen, is that people are now going back and asking, so what solution is Raila offering? What solution is the deputy president offering? And I think that is a very critical conversation, because when it drives people back, to the two manifestos by the presidential candidates who have what it takes to win an election, Kenyans will become a lot more interrogative of what these manifestos are offering in terms of aspirations, and what these manifestos have in terms of delivering those aspirations. And what this man has mentioned is very critical. Who are the people around these presidential candidates who will drive these aspirations into reality? To a large extent, that is what Wajackoyah is offering. And then the second thing is, I think he has come out clearly to deal with the misinformation and malinformation that was characteristic of the medical marijuana that he's talking about. Because a number of people thought that, this is something that you're going to be smoking outside there. But that is far from the case. You listen to Wajackoyah's running mate, Justine, and she's very articulate on how from even the seed that is going to be grown, we are going to get something that is medicinal. And if anyone thinks that they are going to ingest it, the only thing they can get is a detox, which puts everything in very clear perspective. But I think lastly, just so that the public domain is not populated by things that, probably should not take us away from the real competition and the real issues that should contend. And those are the issues presented by the deputy president and Raila Odinga. Wajackoyah is talking about a very interesting way of dealing with our issues that touches on the legislature. That for us to even think of implementing half of the things that Wajackoyah is talking about, we'll need a very robust change in our legislative framework. Not just policy, because the moment you have policy, if the law does not provide for implementation of the policy, then you'll need to change the law. Now, look at his presidential campaign and then ask yourself, if he was to win the presidency, how is he going to implement all these things that he's talking about? He will need a very, solid base in both parliament, in both the National Assembly and Senate. I don't think Kenyans even know any candidate on Roots Party. And that basically tells you that it's good, the conversation is outside there, we can talk about this thing, but certainly these are just things that make us think more about Raila and William Ruto.
Bichachi, there's someone on Twitter who just posted, if marijuana was the backbone of any country, then Jamaica would be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. What do you make of this vis-a-vis the other two manifestos that we've seen?
Well, I think the person is not well informed. They should know that marijuana is actually quite illegal in Jamaica. It's not legal in Jamaica. It's not grown as a cash crop in Jamaica, and that's a different story. However, let's face the facts. Number one, the medical marijuana industry is big. It is in the United States, a $1 billion industry. It's got a lot of investment. People have put in all manner of innovations around it. So is it correct that marijuana can be a cash crop in this country? Yes, Wajackoyah is correct. The second issue of snake venom, that is it a very expensive entity to sell? Yes, it is. Snake venom fetches anything from $1,000 all the way to $48,000 if you can catch a coral snake, which fetches $48,000 for a few grams. So yes, there is a good price to be had from selling this particular product. So in that frame of logic is correct that yes, these are businesses that are viable. But are they viable, for example, snake farming in the large scale in this country? No, it is not. It would not be 1 million Kenyans, for example, keeping 3 million snakes. I do not think that would be possible. Again, remember that this is private enterprise. You cannot say that someone selling snake venom is equal to them paying the national debt. That's playing a bit on the psychology of people, because it is not individuals who pay the public debt. It is our taxes compounded together that pay the public debt. But what has Wajackoyah been able to do that we need to take note of from a communication perspective? He's been able to capture the attention of young people and people who are looking for instant solutions and instant coffee kind of economics. And why he's attractive to them is he's simply telling them that, listen, we will have snakes, we will harvest venom, and we will pay our debt. Of course, that's not how it works, but that seems exciting to anybody who's looking for solutions that are instant. And if you are to talk to someone about who really then is talking about a solution that really touches the hearts of the people on the ground, Wajackoyah is taking the cake. Now, whether the effect of him would be to force a runoff or to cost one of the two candidates votes remains to be seen. My wager is that Kenya has become almost a two-party state where only two parties get 99% of the vote. Whether that will be different this time around remains to be seen. But in terms of being able to capture and to specifically capture the minds of the young people who are looking for instant solutions, the guys who are caught up in sports betting, these are the people who would believe in what Wajackoyah is doing. And if I was Kenya Kwanza, having put my base on the hustlers and things like that, then Wajackoyah would cause me a lot of worry. Why? Because the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, as I've said before, is lacking in the jargon that connects this hustler narrative and differentiates it in any significant way from any other manifesto. I think they talk about an economic model that has not been seen in their manifesto. Wajackoyah is talking about an economic model that these young people feel they can touch. They have seen snakes, they have seen venom being harvested, and it's something that happens. And if you can get $1,000 at least for some cobra venom, why not?
Yeah, you know, how practical is this when you compare even with Kenya Kwanza and you know, Azimio la Umoja manifestos? And you know, in all, as you're speaking to that, the two have, you know, sort of contrasted what is existing, juxtaposing with what they will bring. So when you speak about marijuana and, you know, snake farming and or keeping, are these things that even Kenyans would resonate with?
I am not very fluent in terms of speaking and mainstreaming illegalities. You understand that what we are talking offends critical tenets of our constitution. But we have managed as a nation to sail into the space of the absurd. And our politics seem to have navigated to the place of post-modernity. And I am shocked by the strong endorsements that are coming from Azimio. Wajackoyah is way too absurd and has deleted the concept of modernity in this country and is injuring what it is that we call innocence, truthful speaking. So I am not very conversant within that. But when you're talking about marijuana, is that it's important to at least drill down the facts, because at least the operators within the US and Canada have indicated 60% of them have said that it's not profitable. So it's good, at least check that survey. You'll be able to see that it's not profitable. And there's a reason why Jamaica has never, you know, legalized it, you know, because the economic gain of it is a hearsay. You have to think that marijuana is good for business when you consume it. You know, it's a consumption issue. It's not an economic issue. You understand? It's when you're abusing these substances, the only way you'll get to think that it's economically viable. I know Mumukua, perhaps in your earlier age, you may have consumed it. But you know, it's the thing about narcotics is that you think it will resolve all your problems. So it's more of a consumption issue. And then there's the other danger of over-flooding the nation with something that is an issue in its own self. But allow me to say that critically, when you look at the concept of pending bills, when you look at the concept of financing models, when you look at state capture and repurposing the nation back to its people and to do the functions of its people, the only one who has a viable solution is Kenya Kwanza, frankly speaking. And I can tell that my colleagues haven't read, the manifesto, the People's Manifesto, because all the way from page 58 to page 63, it is the concept of governance, and within that governance, it articulates a disposition that will free this nation from state capture, will repurpose the nation back to its people, and it has the best economic models. You know what? Bottom-up economic model will answer to many things, including the cost of living. It will indeed free us from a nation of a few to the nation of few. Because after independence, what happens essentially is that we establish the black elites. And those black elites became the political and the ruling class. And then they captured the economy, even in a barrage of law reforms. At the end of the day, this country has never changed. The corruption fight and the anger that we have against corruption has been impotent. And therefore, we established that the issue, after going to all the 47 counties, after talking to millions of hustlers because of the fact that Kenya Kwanza has the majority following in the country, then we discovered that indeed we may be saying that we have a government or we have a nation, but it's there for a few and they control the entire economy. So what has Kenya Kwanza repurposed to do? Is to reroute or repurpose 500 billion shillings to the bottom of the pyramid. And in doing that, it has specified where the money will go and that money will generate specific revenues in the various sectors that have been spoken about. And that's not it. As I conclude, there are several things. Number one, a cost perspective. What is a cost perspective? It is looking at punitive laws, punitive policies, a tax regime that is not pro-production or pro-people. Then there's what we call the market agenda, or if you like, the revenue agenda, is seeing MSMEs. They establish 85% of our economy. So if we put specifics in specifics, then what do we gain back? And this is it is practical. We're not talking about something that you consume and you start throwing your fist in the air and you assume that will liberate. Yet it has never liberated any nation in the entire world at the end of the day. So the venom that we must be very careful upon is this venom that Azimio is spewing. Forget about the snake venom.
Moko, what about the snake venom and the hyenas and quite as we were speaking earlier on during the break, unconventional ways of revenue. When you juxtapose with the other two manifestos we've seen, I mean, do you think that we are actually getting to the root of how we will have money in our pockets and Kenyans will have money in the pockets? The cost of living will go lower.
Both Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Alliance and Kenya Kwanza have given us conventional manifestos, and they're looking at issues from a conventional perspective. That is the expectation of Mora and Nafula, that are you going to do this? For instance, there is the productive sector that Raila talks about, giving people 6,000. Then William Ruto says about doubling milk production. Those are things that milk farmers in Kisii or Rift Valley can actually relate with, because they say the only issue is the animal feed. So if you sort out the animal feed, then you're going to have a bigger production. But Wajackoyah is coming up with unconventional solutions. Like, for instance, when he talks about venom, I know 3 Kenyans who engage in snake farming. They harvest the venom and they sell it for top dollar. You've got scholars from all over the world coming to their farms to study these snakes and also even appreciate how they harvest the venom. Now, part of the reason why majority of Kenyans find it a bit extreme or weird is that traditionally folks fear snakes. So even the prospect that you can actually keep a snake, people think that you are related with the devil or something like, the black magic.
Yeah.
But if it's a viable business proposition, you remember not long ago, there was a gentleman, I think from Ithumbi's village, who came up with this thing called the quail eggs. And you saw Kenyans rushing to engage in that kind of farming. So if it gives us a revenue, why not? And again, somebody has addressed it saying that it will not contribute in paying our public debt. If you've got many more Kenyans, if they've got the guts and courage to engage in snake farming, they start selling the venom. All we need to do is to have a regulatory component so that there is a taxation element on the snake venom. Is it going, what rate are you going to pay, which tax? Even if you don't have specifics, the fact that somebody who wants 1,000 bob today can start keeping snakes and within a year is earning $1 million, then a good percentage of that will be disposable income. The government will get more revenues, you will have increased the tax base, and then you will be able to pay your public debt. So in my view, in as much as we want to cast aspersions on the ideas created by Wajackoyah, let's remove the Kenya Kwanza lens, let's remove the Azimio lens and ask ourselves, are these viable? If you're talking about commercial marijuana and the pharmaceutical sector all over the world is interested in buying it, why can't we come up with modalities, set up special economic zones where it's going to be grown, and if you are caught high on what you are producing, then maybe you are short. Because we have special economic zones where Kenyans manufacture clothes for the outside world.
Yeah.
But if you're caught putting on that dress or jeans, whatever it is, then you face very severe economic penalties. Yeah, so we shouldn't dismiss these ideas simply because we don't like what he is talking about. The fact that it's not been done in Jamaica does not mean it cannot be done in Kenya. When a clever Kenyan came up with these M-Pesa concepts, had we said that the fact it's not been done anywhere else in the world, it cannot work in Kenya, then we would have killed that innovation. So I think, give him a pat on the back. He's managed to go through IBC. We know so many candidates who have fallen by the way. And if ever we have the presidential debates, because a number of candidates have said they may not want to make an appearance, he will rock the boat because with his, he's very articulate, he's very knowledgeable. He can actually rock the boat. And finally, talking about this critical issue of state capture, which is the elephant in the room, a basic Google search will tell you that state capture is political corruption. And political corruption, you have a few powerful people at all levels of government taking decisions which serve their selfish personal interest. These decisions do not necessarily serve the public interest. Now, if you want to audit that process, for me, I see absolutely nothing wrong. In my view, as a country called Kenya, if we want to make progress, let's look at all these manifestos, let's look at the presidential candidates, their running mates, and the persons who are supposed to be the cabinet, or rather the prime ministers, and find out their disposition, their thinking, their logic, their raison d'etre. Is it aligned to our public and national interest? Yes. And then, who are they loyal to? Like, for instance, in Kenya Kwanza, the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, who are they loyal to? Are they loyal to Mura, as Ithumbi is telling us? When you go to Azimio la Umoja, the leadership of Azimio la Umoja, who are they loyal to? And a critical issue, the President Kenyatta, who is the chairman of the Azimio Council, in one forum he was quoted as having said that Kenya loses about 2 billion shillings per day. Per year, that comes to 720 billion. 720 billion we are losing per year. That figure, majority of Kenyans don't even understand because they can't even touch it, they can't relate to it. It sounds obscene. But let's go back, abstract. Again, Will indicated that state capture is abstract, but I hope I've broken it down for him to understand. Now, if you're losing 720 billion per year, has Azimio given us a concrete plan on how they intend to manage that corruption? And the person who's given a concrete plan and is attracted attention from the Church, Human Rights Commission, is Wajackoyah. Wajackoyah says that this kind of people will be given an option. 4 options on how to die. One of them, they'll get a meal of chicken and chapati and ugali, but he's proposing to shoot them. Now, has that worked in some parts of the world? Yes. Where? In China. In China, if you steal public coffers, you are shot. In Japan, it's even easy. The environment has been created such that you commit suicide. But what happens in Kenya when you steal? Probability of you running for office and winning is extremely high. That means the majority of Kenyans have embraced impunity, mediocrity, and corruption. Even Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the CS for Interior, has indicated that there are many people who are probably associated with wash who may find their way to the National Assembly,
yes.
to the Senate, or maybe win any of these 1,930 positions. Now, as a nation, how are we going to trust people who score an A in impunity, mediocrity, and corruption, coming up with the decisions to take Kenya to the next level?
I am indeed. And husband, even as you come in, when you look at the, at all this, the entry that the 5th president, whoever it will be, will find, what do you think would be first, whereas there is the manifesto, they will find, the situation is like this, the country is under certain debt, this is the economic situation, this is the health situation. Do you think that the said manifestos will perhaps augur with what they may find on their entry?
You see, that's the reason why we need to interrogate these manifestos, because as they get to power, there are things that they need to sort. And what will help us understand their entry and the things that they'll pay attention to almost immediately is what they put in their manifesto. And you see, this man has said so many things and contradicted himself from the beginning to the end. He started by telling us we should not pay any premium to these manifestos. He finished by saying that Kenyans should base their decisions on these manifestos and the people around these manifestos. He also talked about Kenyans looking at, these manifestos against the backdrop of the people pushing the manifestos, defined what state capture is, and in the process, just made it clear that if state capture is political corruption, then we don't need to look further, because where are all the lords of corruption? Let me not say that they've been convicted, but most of the folks who have corruption baggage, led by the top people in Kenya Kwanza, are in Kenya Kwanza. So when you tell us we should not focus on the manifesto, you're essentially telling us that we should not focus on the leadership. So if they are proposing to fight corruption, we need to start by looking at who are they. But let me just respond to a few things that this man has raised. One, he has talked about, corruption being, state capture being political corruption, and claim that there is no clear way in the Azimio manifesto on how they're going to deal with that. Let me refer Dismas to Azimio Inawezekana agenda number 7, which talks about Azimio la uwajibikaji. Dismas may want to socialize with that because there is an elaborate framework on how to deal with corruption. And it is not like this is going to be from a vacuum somewhere. If you look at Azimio la Wananchi, which basically talks about the business of the government is the business of the people. So there is a sense in which the continuation of what has been happening, from successive governments has to be part and parcel of what the Azimio government is going to do. So have we seen a concerted effort to fight corruption? Yes, we've seen heads roll. So there is no way someone can sit and say, if state capture is political corruption, then we should address political corruption. Let us start by, is it being addressed? And if there's going to be a continuation, can we continue from there? There are guys in the executive arm of the government. If there was state capture in this country, then the guys in the executive arm of the government wouldn't have been asked to step aside by the leadership of the executive. Then number 2, if you are to address the issues in this country, and I think Thumbi has alluded to this, that the economy is very critical. And I think both manifesto provide a very, MSMEs focused kind of approach. Now, the problem that you see in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is that they mention what they will do. One of the most critical one that I think I like is the fact that no business will be taxed more than 1.5% of its turnover, which is very progressive. But you ask yourself, where is the enabling environment to ensure that these businesses in themselves are set up and are thriving for you to even start talking about a turnover? Yes. Let me just go back to Azimio.
We are due for a break. We are due for a break, husband. But briefly, because I see Bichache also nodding, just 30 seconds, Bichache, and then we take this break.
The question,
but you can't cut me short.
The question I want to ask is: in Azimio, there is an obvious framework, but who will fight corruption is the question. In Azimio, you've got Martha Karua. Can she fight corruption? That is obvious. Can Kibuta Kibwana fight corruption? That is obvious. The question is, do you expect Rigathi to wake up any day in his life ever and fight corruption? Do you expect that he will wake up and say, in my priority today, I'm going to fight corruption, or am I going to unfreeze my accounts? So the question here is not what has been promised, is who is promising. And I'll tell you this because I lived it. I was in South Africa in the transition between Thabo Mbeki to Jacob Zuma. And when people talk about so flippantly here about state capture, I lived state capture. I know what it is. And I'll tell you, unless you tell me there's a Gupta family, unless you tell me there's a place other than State House where decisions are made, unless you tell me that Kenya is suffering from the arms of an almost mafia-like cartel outside of government, working through government, then I will tell you, you have no idea what you're talking about when you're talking about state capture. Instead, what you're talking about is the personal beef between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto playing out in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, because it is a personalized grudge against the person of Uhuru Kenyatta. And all of those things in governance are aimed at Uhuru Kenyatta.
And that personal beef, I'm really sorry, we have to take this break because you're pressed for time. That personal beef is what we'll come back with on the second ounces of Inside Politics, even as you take rejoined us from, my panelists here in studio watching. Are you watching Inside Politics? Do stay with us.